The year is 2071, and humanity is destroying itself. Humans, with their violent nature and indisputable desire to conquer, have pushed the Earth to its limits, causing many civil wars and 5 world wars. During the last World War, the enemy, in an attempt to scare the Allies into submission, launched a powerful nuclear warhead into Antarctica at an Ally base. The launch was successful, but nobody knew how bad the consequences would be until it was already too late. Not for the Allies, not for the enemy, but all of humanity. The nuclear warhead, combined with the effects of global warming, melted all the ice at the South Pole, causing land to begin flooding at a rapid pace. Most land mass was quickly covered, and the human population was dealt a huge blow. Humanity didn't go down easily, though. Without enough land, the remaining population retreated underground. They managed to hold out for a few generations, but were only delaying their eventual demise. Being underground meant that cooperation with other states and countries was borderline near impossible. Eventually, everyone was out of everything. No food, no resources, no medicine. Everything you and I take for granted. Humanity abused Mother Nature and took everything she had, but you can only push someone so far until there is nowhere left to push, and Mother Nature decided it was time to say enough. In order to preserve what was left of humanity, a brilliant scientist created an AI called Tartar, with the intentions to pass down humanity's vast knowledge to the next worthy life form. Unfortunately, being limited in devices to install the AI into, he put the AI into an old phone box. The scientist also designed a time capsule to cryogenically seal himself away for 10,000 years, along with his trusty assistant and loyal friend, Judd the cat. Unfortunately, the electricity he had access to was limited, and he can only power one capsule. With a heavy heart, he laid a sleeping Judd into the operational capsule, just before injecting him with an immortality drug to ensure Judd's survival, with his final words to his best friend being this: "Oh, my beloved Judd, it seems that the day has finally come. This capsule is designed to remain cryogenically sealed for 10,000 years. Goodbye, my perfect little kitty cat. Merry meows echoed through the ages." He gave his cat one last stroke behind the ear, for what would be the final time, and closed the capsule door, cryogenically freezing Judd. The next day, humanity went extinct. Even after the collapse of humanity, they still left a huge mark on Earth. Over the course of several years, the oceans absorbed some of the carbon dioxide that humans so carelessly plumed into the atmosphere, raising the acidity levels in the ocean to something akin to tomato juice. Well, for you and me, this wouldn't affect us much. It was detrimental to the various life still living in the ocean. Marine life had to escape. The ocean they called home for so long was now killing them. They were up against huge odds, and failing to adapt meant extinction. But, as usual, life finds a way. Over the course of 10,000 years, marine life evolved rapidly, arms and legs replacing fins for moving on land, and lungs replacing gills for breathing the air. Most sea dwellers had to scrape by with only the absolute necessities for survival on land, leading to Frankenstein abominations being created that looked like they should be still living in water. A few creatures like jellyfish and some crustaceans got lucky with evolution and were able to function and flourish on land. However, there does exist 2 creatures that not only evolved almost perfectly, but evolved a trait no other creature has done before in history. Those creatures are the squid and the octopus. Squids gained the ability of shape-shifting. Upon reaching the age of 14, squids were able to morph their bodies from their old original squid form to a form highly resembling that of a human. They were able to do this thanks to their body being composed of 80% ink and having no bones, instead having a skeleton made up of a soft and malleable cartilage. Unfortunately, a byproduct of this trait was that their skin was very thin, letting in liquids easily and causing the Inklings to dissolve upon contact with water. With this new ability, squids became confused on what they were anymore. Are they a kid, or are they a squid? After much debate, they eventually decided to change their species name altogether and eventually settled on their more modern name, Inkling. Even more interestingly, octopi had a split evolution. While most evolved into what we know now as octarians, some octopi mutated into a form very similar to Inklings, allowing them to transform from an octopus to a humanoid form almost exactly like Inklings. These variants became octolings. Over many years, all the former sea creatures lived in peace with each other and built up a civilization. The two sides became good friends with each other, establishing trade routes and writing peace and friendship treaties. Together, they discovered a strange kind of catfish that they called the zapfish. These docile fish were able to produce large amounts of electricity, with only one zapfish being able to power a neighborhood. With these new sources of unlimited and sustainable power, there was a boom in the advancements of technology. This boom was only helped upon the discovery of the Great Zapfish, a gargantuan zapfish over 50 meters long that produced enough electricity to power a city as large as Tokyo. Around this time, the long since dead human scientist's capsule opened up and Judd emerged. The former sea dwellers were baffled when Judd just walked into town one day. They all saw him as a higher life form and accepted him into their society. Unfortunately, not all good things last forever. Due to the continually rising sea levels, there was a growing level of tension between the Inklings and Octarians. Regretfully, both sides knew that eventually there wouldn't be enough land for the two of them. Eventually, the leader of the Octarians, DJ Octavio, installed a mind control device on every single Octarian, intending to take control of the land and Great Zapfish while also wiping Inklings off the face of the earth, just like humans before them. This marked the beginning of the Great Turf War. The Octarians attacked first at the crack of dawn, easily taking victory and dominating the Inklings, who were used to a life of relaxation and were unable to defend themselves so early in the morning. The war went on for over a year, with the Octarians slowly taking more and more land and bringing the Inklings to the breaking point. In an attempt to stop the Octarian menace, a new military group was formed called the Squid Platoon, with the members being an Inkling as the leader, Captain Cuttlefish, a horseshoe crab, a Moses Schellendorf as the weapons engineer, two Inklings and the children of Captain Cuttlefish acting as the muscle, and Judd, who used his talent in seeing who's winning a battle to be an exceptional officer. The Squid Platoon were able to slow down the advance of the Octarian menace, but were ultimately unsuccessful at stopping them. The Octarians seemed unbeatable with the new invention of the Great Octa-weapons, and victory seemed all but assured. However, the Octarians became careless and accidentally pulled the plug from the Octa-weapons extension cords. With the Octa-weapons disabled, the Inklings were able to push back against the Octarians. Both sides received grievous losses, but after a long, hard-fought battle, the Inklings were able to emerge victorious, partially thanks to their superior number of limbs. The defeated Octarians, with what little numbers they had left, retreated underground to the same places humans holed up before them, connecting what little territory they had left with a series of kettle networks far away from Inklings in a place now known as Octo Valley. Deep underground, deeper than Octo Valley, in a place called the Deep Sea Metro, Tartar, the AI created by the scientists 12,000 years ago, resided. Its original purpose was to pass on the knowledge of humans to the next dominant life form and make sure they didn't repeat the same mistakes as the humans. However, after spending 12,000 years alone, with only seeing unworthy life forms pass by, Tartar developed sentience and began to question the scientists' logic. Seeing the Inklings and Octolings evolve gave Tartar a glimmer of hope, but as time went on it became more and more disgusted by the cephalopods and how they obsess over pointless fashion and needless wars. Tartar decided it was time to take matters into its own hands. Since then, Tartar started luring and trapping Octarians, Octolings, and any other sea dweller could get his hands on, using an oversized blender to mash them into a paste so he could extract their DNA and use them to make the perfect life form. What was left of the blended sea dwellers was but a sanitized husk, devoid of any free will or thought, serving under the command of Tartar and his growing army. Using the power of the Great Zapfish, jellyfish were able to build what is now the most popular vacation location and Inkling capital of the world, Inkopolis. In particular, a place in Inkopolis called Inkopolis Plaza was an especially popular place for Inklings to go whenever they wanted to participate in Turf War, a sport inspired by the events of the Great Turf War where 2 teams of 4 compete to cover as much turf as possible in their own color ink. Inkopolis was also a place where a ton of businesses started or got expanded to. The unrivaled place every Inkling went for weapons to use in Turf War was Ammonites, ran by Sheldon the horseshoe crab, who inherited it from his grandfather, Moses Schellendorf. A tradition Inkopolis has followed since it was created are an event called Splatfests. Once a month, a strange fax machine printed out a theme for the month with 2 sides. Inklings would pick a side and compete with the other side in Turf War. Whichever side won was, according to Splatfest's law, better than the losing side. But for the most part, it was all in fun and games. One day, to celebrate Inkopolis' first birthday, The city held a youth folk singing contest where young contenders from all around could show off their singing skills and win a prize. One particular contestant named Pearl Hazuki ended up being kicked out when her voice sent a shockwave throughout the venue, causing glass to shatter and busting the speakers. Ever since that day, Pearl took it upon herself to hone her singing skills, traveling up to Mount Nantai just outside Inkopolis every day to practice. The winners of the folk singing contest went to an unlikely pair, two young Inkling cousins from the Calamari County and grandchildren of Captain Cuttlefish. Callie Cuttlefish and Marie Cuttlefish completely captivated the crowd with their amazing singing voices, singing the lines of their own song, Calamari Incantation. Everyone present gave them a standing ovation, earning them the prize and getting their dream career off the ground. Callie and Marie created a band called the Squid Sisters, despite them actually being cousins. A few years later, at the age of just 15, they had quite a considerable following. However, unknown to everyone, the Squid Sisters both had another life they had to live. Callie and Marie were Agents 1 and 2 respectively in the Squid Beaks Platoon. Like absolute troopers, they protected Inkopolis from the Octarians while making music, all the while they had to hold down jobs at the Walleye warehouse. At the age of 17, Callie and Marie auditioned for the role as hosts in Inkopolis News, where they would report stages of the day, Splatfests, and other going-ons in Inkopolis. Callie and Marie agreed that it would serve as a much better way of receiving income and to further their career. Not to mention they both agreed it would be a lot of fun. During the audition, they blew out the competition, solidifying them in the role. They quit their jobs at Walleye Warehouse and burned their uniforms, happy they wouldn't have to go back there. The next day, the Squid Sisters aired live from Inkopolis News, and everyone quickly took a liking to them. With their great personalities and silly banter with a bit of sibling rivalry in the mix, they etched themselves into the hearts of Inkopolis and everyone living there. Their exceptional music anchored itself into the DNA of Inklings, with the Squid Sisters single-handedly becoming the icons for the young generation of Inkopolis. Times were great for the Inklings, and they didn't need to worry much about anything. However, underground in the Octo Valley with all the Octarians, things were taking a turn for the worse. Resources and electricity reserves were diminishing. With no sustainable electricity, their world was falling apart, with 17% of their empire already being uninhabitable. In an attempt to save himself and his people, DJ Octavio sent out a party of Octarians at night while the Inklings were asleep to steal the Zapfish and Great Zapfish. Their plan was executed perfectly and the Octarian party returned without being spotted. With the Great Zapfish in their possession, the Octarians began to power their homes and weapons, preparing to take back the surface world. Somewhere outside of Inkopolis, an Inkling girl whose name is unknown just reached the age of 14, allowing her to shapeshift and permitting her to participate in Turf War. Eagerly wanting to play in Turf War and participate in Splatfests, she left her family and moved to Inkopolis to move up in life. Upon reaching Inkopolis Plaza, she noticed that everyone was a bit uneasy. She later found out that overnight, the Great Zapfish and all of the Zapfish were mysteriously missing with no trace. The city was only running on diminishing power reserves. In an attempt to not get too worried, the Inkling girl decided to explore the plaza a bit and hope that someone else solves the problem. While she explored this place, she came across Captain Cuttlefish, who for some reason was looking out from a manhole. Curiously, she followed him down the manhole. On the other side, she found herself in Octo Valley with Captain Cuttlefish waiting for her. Cuttlefish told her the Octarians stole the Great Zapfish and how critical the situation really was. Seeing great potential in the Inkling, Cuttlefish recruited her as a third agent in the Squid Beaks Platoon, tasked with recovering the Great Zapfish and protecting Inkopolis. Agent 3 set out in Octo Valley to recover the Zapfish. As it turned out, Agent 3 had a natural talent for infiltrating Octarian bases, splatting Octarians, and saving Zapfish. Along the way, she met Agents 1 and 2, but didn't recognize them as Callie and Marie because they were in their disguise. In an attempt to stop Agent 3, Octavio sent out several Octo weapons, the same weapons used in the Great Turf War, now upgraded and more powerful than ever to stop her. Against what seemed like impossible odds, Agent 3 came out on top each and every time, destroying all the Octo weapons one by one. Finally, the time came when Agent 3 saved all the Zapfish and was coming for the Great Zapfish. Octavio, fed up at this point, decided he was going to put the latest and most powerful Octo weapon ever designed to the test. While Agent 3 was on lunch break, Octavio kidnapped Captain Cuttlefish and brought him and the Great Zapfish to the same place to lure Agent 3 into a trap. Octavio also made sure he had his army in a place where they could safely watch so they could bear witness to the absolute power of their leader. Agent 3 arrived just in time to see Octavio in his new Octo weapon, the Octobot King. Agent 3 fought hard, using every ounce of skill she picked up in her adventures, only barely able to keep pace with Octavio and the Octobot King. Right as things began to look bleak, Agents 1 and 2, Callie and Marie came out of nowhere, overriding Octobot's beast with their own piece, Calamari Incantation. The notes of the incantation pulsated throughout the entire arena for everyone to hear, including the Octarians. Invigorated by the song engraved in her blood, Agent 3 made one final advance. With one final shot from her hero shot, Agent 3 dealt the finishing blow to Octavio, sending him flying like a missile into the Octobot King, causing the Octobot to explode in an epic shower of ink. The citizens in Inkopolis woke up the next day to see that the Great Zapfish had mysteriously reappeared in its regular spot. DJ Octavio, who survived the ink explosion, was captured and trapped in a highly secure snow globe for Captain Cuttlefish to keep an eye on. Ever since that day, Agent 3 swore her allegiance to the Squid Beaks Platoon, watching over Inkopolis and thwarting any attempts that Octavio's army made to break him out. However, the events of that day had even greater effects than even the Squid Beaks Platoon foretold.